One day I was bored and scrolling through Amazon looking for a new book to read when I came across a preparation book for the GAOKAO entrance exam. And what are the chances? It has an economics section. Now, if you don't know who I am, well, that's great because neither do I. But I like to think I'm pretty decent at economics, so I got curious which one is actually tougher, CUET or GAOKAO? Before I start, I should give you guys two disclaimers. First is toughness is completely subjective. So for this video, I'm going to be simply defining toughness as which one has more conceptually challenging questions. If you look at a factor like number of students giving an exam, conceptually challenging doesn't really matter. Now, on to the second one. I actually kind of lied. While it is true that GAOKAO does have an economics section, it doesn't have an economics paper. Economics just falls under a bracket called comprehensive humanities. You might not see why that's a problem, but let me explain to you why that's such a big problem. For example, look at this question. It says prepaying for goods and services benefits both businesses and consumers, but it leads to a higher risk of fraud. So the Chinese Supreme Court basically released a document about it. So which of the following happened? I picked 1 and 4, but turns out I was wrong. Why? Well, because in the fourth statement, it says Supreme Court acted from a legislative perspective. But this decision is more like from a judicial perspective. So, of course, I'm an economics student and I didn't realize this, but as you can see, it is not just a test of economics, it's a test of all of political science, all of history, all of geography with an economics perspective. Now we got that out of the way, let's talk what the actual portion is. I assume anyone watching this does know what the CUT portion is, so I'll just briefly go over it. CUET economics can broadly be divided into three parts. The first part is called microeconomics, which is the study of how individual economic agents make decisions and interact. The main focus is to understand the mindset of buyers and sellers and the tug of war that happens that ultimately decides the price of goods and services. Now, the second part, which is macroeconomics. Macroeconomics can be simply defined as the summation of infinite terms of microeconomics. Macroeconomics focuses on how aggregate forces move the entire economy and how different policy actions can control nationwide cycles. And for the last one, we have Indian economic development, which is just history. Now, on to the actual fun part. The Gaokya portion is roughly 60 to 70% the same, but there are key differences in teaching ideologies. Gaokya uses a Marxist approach, while the NCRT uses a neoliberal approach. Language in the Gaokya is a lot more stricter compared to the NCRT. For example, look at this option. Water is a mixed public good and a strategic resource. The water supply should be dominated by the state-owned economy. Look at the word should. It places such an heavy emphasis on it, as in it is the only correct thing. I've never seen any academic textbook use such a strict language before. Though I should warn you that all the questions were translated by ChatGPT, so it is very possible this is just a mistranslation. But I have never heard of anything like this before. The next point is that the Gaokao questions require very day-to-day knowledge. So if you do not keep up with current affairs, you will struggle a lot to solve these questions. While for the CUET, even if you use a book from the 1930s, you should be fine. The questions in the Gaokya are more application based. For example, they might ask you to figure out what will happen to the price of gold due to inflation, whereas in CUT, they will ask you to calculate inflation itself. Now let's talk about what specific topics are present in GAOKAO that the NCRT lacks. The first point is heavy emphasis on government control. The NCRT follows the theory that the government should only intervene during market failures, while the economics in GAOKAO believes that the government should always be involved in the economy to prevent market failures from even happening in the first place. Second point is Marxist principles, things such as the labor theory value of money and the inherent contradiction of capitalism, surplus theory are taught in the Gaokya but are not mentioned in the NCRT at all. Third point is Chinese history, because duh, of course, we're not going to study Chinese history while we're in India. Another difference is the role of public sector undertaking. In the Gaokyo economics, it is said that public sector undertaking should be under the control of the government and be profit making. While in the NCRT, it says that they should be more autonomous and be profit generating. So that's a very interesting difference. Next point is socialism. From my memory, I can recall socialism being mentioned only once during chapter 1 of Indian economic development. While socialism act as the very foundation of GAOKAO economics, everything centers around it. Every single policy decision is looked through the lens of socialism. Now, let's talk about things that the NCRT has that the GAOKAO doesn't. First one is obviously Indian history, because why would they be learning about India's history? Second point is a lack of consumer core theory. This is basically your chapter 2 of microeconomics. I believe they lack this theory specifically is simply because it goes against the idea of true labor value, which is a theory they believe in. That theory basically says that the value of a good is derived from the fact that how many hours or how much effort has been put into making it. This goes against the idea of chapter 2, which says that utility is completely subjective. Next is a lack of accountancy. In the CUET topics, you will study such things as calculation of national income, double counting, calculating inflation, etc. These topics are just not present in the GAOKA version, and honestly, it makes sense because it is a humanities paper, so it doesn't make sense for there to be math present. The final point is about the last chapter of macroeconomics, a comprehensive comparison between India, China, and Pakistan. This chapter isn't present in the Gaokao, and I think it is justified because if you have actually read that chapter, you would know where India stands next to China. So, which one is actually tougher? Well, to explain that, I'm going to solve one of each question in front of you live right now. All right, I'm going to solve this specific question. I got this from a site called Afterboards, and this is from 2025, 26th May, Shift 2. So, this is the question. As you can see, this is a basic master following, and this question specifically can be easily solved by using something called a demand supply functions cross section model, which can, but I'm not going to use that because I think that's lame. So, the first point says increase in demand is more than increase in supply. This basically means more people want a good than the market is willing to supply. That will simply lead to a rise in the equilibrium price, and of course a rise in quantity as well. So I think it should be this. And the second part is increase in demand is less than increase in supply. So basically more people are supplying said goods, so that will basically lead to an excess supply, which will lead to a decrease in the equilibrium price, but will lead to an increase in the equilibrium quantity. So I think it's B3. If I look at the options, only this one matches up, but let's do the entire thing. Increase in demand is equal to increase in supply. So basically nothing. The equilibrium quantity increases, but the price changes, stays the same. And this has to be this. So D2, C4. Oh, C was all four. So it's this. We're going to be solving this question. A bit about this question. This question is from the GAOKAO 2016 political science paper. Yeah, so let's solve it now. This is the translated version thanks to ChatGPT, and this is the original if anyone's curious. After the famous Western Jin dynasty writer, yeah, I'm not even going to try pronouncing all these words, completed his masterpiece, and the people in the capital praised for its quality and scrambled to copy it. That certainly caused the price of paper and silver to skyrocket several times over. This is the historical origins. If S and D represent the supply and demand of the curves respectively, which are the following happened. Okay. So basically, out of all this is basically a story you have to like decode and figure out stuff out. Okay. So basically, S and D represent of silk and paper. So the since people want to buy this book, and so I guess for counterfeit this book, it will lead to an increase in demand. So and nothing is mentioned about supply, so I'll just assume it's constant, right? So in this one, demand is decreasing. No, supply demand's not moving. Nah, it's this one. So which one is tougher? Well, I think it is Gaokao, simply because it requires application-based thinking. Deciphering an entire story and turning it into economic theory is an extra step, which is not always easy. Whereas in the CUET, they will directly give you a question, and if you know the economic theory, you will be able to solve it 100% of the time. So well, that's the end of the video. So if you did enjoy, do subscribe, because if I ever decide to do an MBA abroad, I can use a higher subscriber count to flex.